The crowd buzzed with excitement as the Galactic tournament's opening ceremony unfolded on a massive, floating platform. Thousands of alien species filled the stands, their bodies a kaleidoscope of shapes, sizes, and colors. From towering insectoids with multiple arms to gelatinous masses that rippled like liquid, each species watched eagerly as the annual event kicked off. It was an occasion for the finest warriors in the galaxy to prove their might. This year, however, there was an unusual participant. Li Shan stood at the edge of the arena, his bare feet grounded in the cold metal, his face calm, as always. The Shaolin monk's robes fluttered lightly in the windless vacuum of the arena, but he seemed unaware of the thousands of eyes on him. In his heart, he carried only the serenity that decades of training had instilled in him. Yet beneath the calm, a fire burned. He was here not to fight for glory, but for Earth. Beside him, an official handed him a simple wooden staff. The monk accepted it without a word, its weight neither a burden nor a comfort, just a tool. He looked so fragile, one of the spectators whispered from the stands, a reptilian being with long, coiled necks. He's not even wearing armor, another chimed in, her voice laced with a mix of disdain and pity. Are you telling me that is Earth's champion? A third voice, low and mocking, came from the Varzanian delegation. At the opposite side of the arena stood Commander Zarek, the towering general of the Varzanian fleet, clad in gleaming, high-tech battle armor. His eyes scanned the arena, briefly pausing on the lone monk. Zarek's lips curled into a sneer. Earth, with its primitive technologies, had been permitted to send a representative. And to everyone's surprise, it was a monk, a relic of an era long past. What is this? Zarek scoffed, glancing at his second-in-command, who stood beside him in a gleaming black suit. A monk from Earth? How quaint. The second-in-command, his face obscured by a full helmet, chuckled. I thought they were supposed to be some sort of peacekeepers. Do they think their ancient ways will impress the galaxy? I don't know what they think, Zarek muttered, but it won't last long. Earth's reputation is nothing more than myth. We will end that myth today. The arena's master of ceremonies, a four-armed being with multiple eyes, called for silence. Warriors, to your positions. The tournament begins. Li Shan took a deep breath, his mind still. His focus was not on the mocking whispers or the grand spectacle around him. He had heard worse in his life, heard men laugh, dismiss, and underestimate. What mattered now was the challenge ahead. What mattered was the opportunity to show that Earth's strength, though unheralded, was real. The monks of Shaolin had not spent centuries honing their craft just to be ridiculed by the galaxy. Your first opponent, the official announced, a thin, humanoid alien who carried a tablet, is Krolak, champion of the Korgoth Empire. He is a genetically enhanced berserker. You may want to reconsider. Li Shan raised his hand, signaling the official to stop. I will fight, he said softly. His voice was calm, unwavering. The official hesitated but nodded and stepped back. A moment later, Krolak appeared. He was a hulking figure, his skin a mottled green with tattoos covering most of his body. His eyes were a deep crimson, and his bare chest, scarred and battle-worn, heaved as he grunted. The audience cheered as Krolak flexed his massive arms, pounding his fists against his chest. It was clear that he was a creature of pure violence, engineered for one purpose, to destroy. Li Shan's hands, though, remained relaxed at his sides. The wooden staff twirled gently in his grip, his fingers brushing lightly against the grain of the ancient wood. The arena quieted as the two fighters faced each other. The announcer's voice echoed, "Let the match begin." Krolak charged, his enormous frame thundering toward Li Shan. The force of his movement shook the arena floor. He raised his fist, a bludgeoning hammer of muscle and bone, ready to crush the monk into the ground. But Li Shan was already moving. His feet, light as feathers, shifted with the fluidity of water, stepping aside in an effortless motion. Krolak's fist missed by mere inches, his massive body lurching forward and throwing him off balance. The audience gasped in unison. They hadn't expected such agility. Krolak roared in fury, spinning on his heels, and attacked again, fists, elbows, knees, all in an unstoppable flurry of rage. But Li Shin was a blur, dodging and weaving through the onslaught with an elegance that made the audience question their own understanding of combat. "You see? This is Earth's warrior," one spectator murmured, disbelief in their voice. Li Shin's movements were calculated. Each step, each dodge, was part of a deeper strategy. He had studied Krolak's movements even before the match began. The Korgoth Empire's berserkers were strong, but they relied on brute force, not strategy. Krolak's next punch, a wild swing, was met by the monk's staff. The impact sent a sharp crack through the air, but instead of breaking, the staff absorbed the force and redirected it. With a fluid motion, Li Shin swung the staff around and struck Krolak on the side of his knee. The berserker staggered, his knee giving way with a pained howl. The crowd fell silent. Some were confused, others intrigued. Krolak, enraged, came at him once more. His movements were sluggish now, the injury taking its toll. Li Shin's foot moved again, just a flicker of motion, and he knocked Krolak's feet out from under him. The giant crumpled to the ground with a crash that shook the platform. Li Shin stood over him, his staff resting lightly in his hands. He did not strike. He did not press the advantage. Instead, he offered a hand. Krolak growled and swatted it away, but the gesture was clear: victory was not in the force of the blow, but in the mastery of oneself. The announcer's voice rang out. Li Shin, champion of Earth, victorious in his first match. The crowd erupted in mixed reactions. Some cheered, some muttered in disbelief. Zarek's eyes narrowed. Earth's champion had won, but at what cost? The monk had not used a weapon. He had not relied on any advanced technology. He had simply moved. Next time, Zarek muttered to himself, it will be different. Li Shin turned and walked calmly off the arena floor, his eyes never leaving the horizon. The galaxy would soon know, Earth's martial arts were not to be underestimated. The buzz from the previous match had barely settled when the next round of the tournament began. The audience, a mix of excitement and skepticism, had barely caught their breath. Earth's representative, Li Shin, had shattered expectations, at least, momentarily. The alien warriors in the stands exchanged uncertain glances, still trying to process what had just unfolded. Li Shin stood in the quiet aftermath, his expression serene, his focus unwavering. Despite the murmurs of disbelief that rippled through the crowd, he was already preparing for his next opponent. The monk had barely broken a sweat. Krolak's brute strength had been no match for the subtlety of Shaolin Kung Fu. The victory was satisfying, but it was only the beginning. As the next fighter emerged, a ripple of anticipation spread through the stands. From the opposite end of the arena, a massive figure strode forward, Zareth of the Thalrasi, a six-limbed warrior with a metallic exoskeleton that shimmered in the artificial lights. His race was known for its technological advancements and their cold, calculated approach to battle. Unlike Krolak, Zareth wasn't a berserker. He was precise, methodical, and entirely reliant on the enhanced power of his exosuit. Li Shin could feel the tension in the air shift. The odds were different now. Zareth was not going to rush in like Krolak. He would not fall into the trap of overconfidence. The monk knew that. He adjusted his stance, drawing on his training, waiting for the right moment to strike. Li Shin of Earth, the announcer's voice echoed across the arena, your next challenge is Zareth of the Thalrasi. A warrior whose skill is as sharp as his mind. Zareth raised his arms, and the crowd cheered, impressed by the display of sheer power radiating from his suit. The metallic limbs whirred with energy as he flexed them, a silent promise of what was to come. Let the match begin, the announcer declared. Zareth wasted no time. He lunged forward with frightening speed, his exosuit amplifying his every movement. His limbs moved like bladed instruments, designed for one thing, to cut down his opponent with precision. Li Shin stepped back, fluidly gliding to the side. The moment Zareth's arm swung towards him, Li Shin was already moving, his body bending like water around a rock, avoiding the strike with a grace that seemed almost effortless. The audience, accustomed to the ferocity of intergalactic warriors, watched in stunned silence as the monk evaded every strike. Zaratha's speed and strength were formidable, but it became clear that Li Shin was not simply defending. He was waiting, watching, assessing. "You can't run forever, Earthling." Zarath sneered, his voice amplified by the suit's speakers. With a burst of energy, his mechanical fist shot out, targeting Li Shin's head. The strike was meant to be a kill shot. Li Shin's eyes narrowed, his breath slowing to a controlled rhythm. He ducked, almost too fast for the eye to follow. The mechanical fist whizzed past, missing him by an inch. As Zarath attempted another swing, Li Shin moved like lightning, his staff snapping forward with a calculated precision, striking the point of Zaratha's exposed elbow joint. A resounding crack echoed in the arena as the exosuit's armor bent under the force. Zarath let out a screech of frustration. "You're a fool to think you can stop me," he growled, the whir of his suit rising in intensity. His other arm swung at Li Shin, but the monk was already several steps ahead, sidestepping yet again, his staff connecting with the Thalrasi warrior's side. The blow didn't seem to land with great force, but the strike sent a ripple through Zaratha's armor. Zaratha's movements grew erratic as the monk's calmness wore him down. The mechanical suit that had once seemed like an insurmountable advantage now became a disadvantage. The more he moved, the more Li Shin's strikes found weak points in the suit's design. It was a battle of precision versus power. And in this arena, precision was winning. "You think your tricks will save you?" Zarath roared, attempting a spinning kick that would have shattered a normal opponent. But Li Shin was not a normal opponent. With a quick shift of his body, the monk caught the incoming leg with one hand, twisting it gently but firmly, using the momentum against Zarath. The warrior crashed to the ground with a loud clang as his suit hit the arena floor. Li Shin stood above him, his staff raised slightly in the air, poised and ready, but not yet striking. The Thalrasi warrior struggled to get up, his suit's systems flickering in protest. "Your strength is impressive," Li Shin said softly, his voice carrying across the quiet arena. "But it's limited by your reliance on power. Strength comes from balance, not force." Zaratha's breathing was ragged, and the crowd fell into a tense silence. They had expected an explosive battle, not this controlled and seemingly effortless performance from Earth's monk. The Thalrasi warrior's chest heaved as he glared at Li Shin. "I will not fall so easily. I will crush you." Zaratha's suit whirred back to life as he staggered to his feet, but the damage was done. The once precise movements had become sluggish. His systems were compromised, and it was only a matter of time before his exosuit gave out completely. Li Shin lowered his staff, stepping toward Zarath. He made no move to attack. The warrior's eyes widened as he realized what the monk was doing. He was offering him the same chance he had given Krolak, mercy. But Zarath, filled with a burning pride, refused to accept it. "I don't need your mercy," Zarath screamed, lunging forward with one final, desperate strike. Li Shin stepped aside, his body flowing with the ease of water. Zaratha's charge was wild and desperate, the exosuit unable to keep up with the monk's calculated movements. The warrior crashed into the arena's protective barrier with a sickening thud, his systems completely failing. Li Shin turned away, his expression unchanged. "The fight is over," he said simply. The announcer's voice broke the tension. Li Shin of Earth, victorious in his second match. The audience was stunned into silence. No one had expected this. The monk from Earth had done the impossible again. He had defeated one of the galaxy's most feared warriors with nothing more than skill and discipline. His body never once relied on brute force, his movements an embodiment of calm and precision. In the stands, Commander Zarek's eyes narrowed, and a flicker of unease passed across his face. This wasn't supposed to happen. Earth was a joke. Yet here was this monk, defying all logic, outlasting opponents who relied on technology, power, and destruction. Li Shin glanced up toward the stands, his gaze meeting Zarek's for a fleeting moment. The Varzanian commander's scowl deepened. Li Shin knew what was coming next. And so did the rest of the galaxy. The arena was quiet, an eerie calm that settled in after the fierce clash between Li Shen and Zareth. The crowd still buzzed with uncertainty, murmuring amongst themselves as they tried to grasp the meaning of what had just transpired. Earth's monk had defeated another formidable opponent, this time with even greater ease. But there was no doubt now, a sense of growing respect, mixed with unease, filled the air. Li Shen's victory over Zareth had been as much about strategy as it was about restraint. He hadn't fought to destroy. He fought to expose the weaknesses of his opponents, physically, mentally, and spiritually. He had not used brute force, he had used precision, balance, and focus. It was a style that the galaxy had not seen before. It was a style that, at this point, was beginning to catch the attention of the most powerful warriors. In the stands, Commander Zarek clenched his fists, his eyes fixed on the monk as he walked calmly from the arena. The Varzanian general had been watching Li Shen's every move, studying him with the cold, calculating precision of a predator. Zarek had seen many battles, too many to count, but never one quite like this. Impossible, he muttered to himself, his voice barely audible beneath the crowd's chatter. How can this primitive from Earth move like that? It's not just skill, it's something more. Zarek's second-in-command, an officer with sleek, dark plating, leaned in, sensing his commander's frustration. General, perhaps it's time to deal with this. Earthling directly. He's already humiliated two of our best warriors. His style, if you can call it that, won't last much longer against you. Zarek's lips curled into a sneer. We'll see. I'll make sure he understands that Earth's place in the galaxy is not one of respect. It's one of servitude. Li Shen, meanwhile, had retreated to his quarters. His mind was calm, yet his thoughts were sharp. He meditated for hours, listening to the hum of the arena in the distance, grounding himself in the deep stillness that only Shaolin training could provide. He had faced two warriors so far, two warriors who had underestimated him, two warriors who had fallen to the same mistake. They relied too heavily on their technology, their strength, their power. Earth's martial arts were not just about combat. They were a way of life. A way to train the body, the mind, and the spirit. In his solitude, Li Shen felt the weight of his mission growing heavier. Earth's honor was on the line, but so was something far more crucial, the chance for the galaxy to see the true strength of Earth's ancient traditions. The knock on his door was quiet, but firm. Enter, Li Shen called without turning. The door slid open, and a young woman stepped inside. She was human, with long black hair pulled back into a tight ponytail. She was dressed in the uniform of an Earth diplomat, a symbol of the planet's official status in the Galactic Union. Masterly, she said, bowing slightly. You've been summoned. The next match, it's against the Varzanian champion. Li Shen nodded, his expression unreadable. I know. The woman hesitated, a flicker of concern crossing her face. You don't have to do this. The galaxy already knows your strength. You've proven more than enough. Li Shen's eyes remained steady. It is not enough to prove strength. I must also show them the truth. That strength is not defined by weapons or technology. It's something much deeper. The woman looked at him for a long moment, her gaze filled with both admiration and worry. Finally, she spoke. The Varzanian general, his reputation precedes him. He's a fighter unlike any other. His tactics are ruthless. You'll need to be more than what you've shown so far. Li Shen stood slowly, his movements fluid and purposeful. That's exactly what I plan to do. The arena was even more crowded than before. The Varzanian delegation, with its array of sleek, dark uniforms, sat near the front. Commander Zarek sat in the center, his gaze locked onto the monk. His presence alone seemed to radiate an air of dominance, though his eyes betrayed something else, a growing sense of uncertainty. Li Shen entered the arena in his usual composed manner. His robes billowed slightly as he moved, his staff held with an almost reverential grace. This time, the audience was more subdued, their expectations higher. They had seen him defeat two warriors, each one more powerful than the last. Now, It was time to face the ultimate challenge. The announcer's voice boomed across the arena. Warriors, your final match of the day, Li Shin, champion of Earth, versus Commander Zarek, leader of the Varzanian fleet. The crowd erupted into applause, but Zarek's eyes never left Li Shin. Li Shin met his gaze. He didn't need to speak. He didn't need to say a word to know what was coming. Zarek's reputation was one of brutal efficiency. The commander's every move was calculated for maximum destruction. He had mastered every combat technique imaginable, and his battle strategies were renowned for their merciless precision. Zarek's armored frame shone under the artificial lights. As he stepped forward, the ground seemed to tremble beneath his boots. With every step, a mechanical hum filled the air, the power of his suit coursing through him. "You're a fool to think you can defeat me, Earthling," Zarek's voice echoed across the arena. "You're nothing but an insect trying to challenge a titan." Li Shin's gaze remained steady, calm. "We shall see." The arena's energy shifted. It wasn't just a battle for the tournament now. It was a battle for the galaxy's perception of Earth. Li Shin's every movement, his every breath, was filled with a deeper purpose. The announcer's voice rang out, "Let the final match begin." Zarek charged, his powerful legs propelling him with an explosive burst of speed. His fists, armored and electrified, aimed to crush Li Shin with a series of rapid strikes. Li Shin didn't flinch. He didn't hesitate. The monk's body moved like a wave, flowing around the oncoming barrage. Zarek's attacks were fast, brutal, and relentless, but Li Shin seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. The monk's movements were so precise that it was as if the battle was already over in his mind. Zarek growled in frustration, unable to land a single blow. His attacks were wild now, fueled by anger and arrogance, but still, Li Shin danced out of the way. "You can't win this!" Zarek roared, bringing down an overhead strike with all his might. Li Shin stepped back, the strike missing by mere inches. He flicked his wrist, his staff coming up to meet the opening in Zarek's armor. A sharp crack resounded as the staff slammed against the commander's suit, creating a flash of sparks. Zarek staggered, momentarily disoriented, but he quickly recovered. "You'll regret that," he hissed. But Li Shin was already moving again, his body a fluid motion of controlled power. Every step, every twist, was part of a larger plan. He wasn't just fighting Zarek, he was dismantling his confidence, his belief in his superiority. With a fluid motion, Li Shin struck again, this time targeting the weak points in Zarek's suit. The battle had just begun, but one thing was already clear: this would not be over quickly. And for Zarek, the real test was only just beginning. The clash between Li Shin and Commander Zarek had escalated. The vast arena, suspended in the weightlessness of space, hummed with energy as the two combatants engaged in an intricate dance of strength and skill. Li Shin, despite his calm demeanor, was fully immersed in the battle. His movements were fluid and precise, a perfect reflection of the Shaolin principles he had spent his life mastering. Zarek, on the other hand, was a relentless force, his every strike designed to incapacitate or destroy. But the monk was proving more than a match for the Varzanian commander. Zarek's arrogance had clouded his judgment. He had underestimated Earth. He had underestimated Li Shin. Zarek swung his massive armored arm down, aiming for the monk's head. The sheer force of the blow would have crushed a lesser fighter. But Li Shin wasn't a lesser fighter. He moved with the grace of a falling leaf, sidestepping the strike and closing the gap between them in an instant. Before Zarek could react, Li Shin's staff whipped through the air, striking the commander's exposed side. The blow connected with the force of a thunderclap, sending a shockwave through Zarek's suit. For a brief moment, Zarek's movement faltered, and the monk seized the opportunity. "You are strong, Zarek," Li Shin said quietly, his voice carrying across the battlefield. "But strength alone cannot win a battle." Zarek's eyes burned with fury. He had never been defeated. He had always been the one to break his enemies, to crush them under the weight of his superior might. And yet here he was, struggling against an opponent who wasn't even using weapons, who wasn't relying on brute force. "Shut up!" Zarek growled. His voice, amplified by the suit's speakers, reverberated through the arena. "You think you can defeat me with philosophy? With your ancient tricks?" Li Shan said nothing, but his movements spoke for him. The monk's staff flicked upward, parrying a strike from Zarek's arm, then twisted to strike the commander's other side. The impact resonated through Zarek's suit, but he refused to show weakness. His exosuit hummed with a renewed surge of energy, his limbs moving with a sudden viciousness. Zarek launched himself forward, his entire body barreling at Li Shan like a freight train. He was faster now, more aggressive, his mind clouded by rage. He swung a massive fist at the monk's head, a blow that could have ended the fight in an instant. But Li Shan wasn't there. The monk had already anticipated the move. Zarek's fist crashed into empty air. With a swift motion, Li Shan darted behind him, his foot sweeping out to trip Zarek. The commander's massive body faltered. He staggered but quickly regained his balance, spinning around to face his opponent, now seething with anger. "You're not worthy of victory," Zarek hissed, his voice dripping with disdain. "Earth is nothing. Your people are nothing." Li Shan's eyes narrowed slightly, but his expression remained impassive. "It's not your place to decide who is worthy. It's our place to show the galaxy who we are." With a flash of motion, Zarek surged forward again, his suit's powerful thrusters kicking in to propel him toward Li Shan. The monk didn't have time to dodge this one. Zarek's fist collided with his chest with such force that the shockwave knocked him backward, sending him sliding across the arena floor. For a brief moment, Li Shan felt the sting of the impact. His ribs ached. His breath was shallow. Zarek's strength was undeniable. But the monk's will was unyielding. He rose to his feet slowly, wiping the blood from his lip. His stance was steady, his heart unbroken. "You may have power, Zarek," Li Shan said, his voice low but unwavering, "but your strength is not enough to win this fight." Zarek's breath came in heavy gasps, his body clearly strained from the relentless pace of the battle. His suit was battered, his movements sluggish. He had pushed beyond his limits. The monk, however, still seemed composed, still unaffected by the grueling physicality of the fight. "You're a fool," Zarek sneered. "You don't understand. I don't need to be stronger than you. I just need to break you. I'll break you." But Li Shan had already anticipated his next move. With a fluid step, the monk pivoted, his staff swinging up to catch Zarek's incoming strike. The force of the impact jolted Zarek backward, but Li Shan didn't relent. His staff pressed forward again, striking the weak point in Zarek's exosuit, the vulnerable joints in the commander's legs. Zarek grunted in pain, his suit faltering for a split second. It was enough. Li Shan spun around, his staff striking with pinpoint precision, landing a final blow to the weak point in the suit's core. Sparks flew from Zarek's armor as the suit's systems began to fail. The massive commander staggered, his limbs shaking, his breath ragged. Zarek's vision blurred as his suit flickered and buzzed, its energy reserves depleting. The Varzanian warrior had been bested, not by brute strength, but by the precision and discipline of a monk who understood that true power came from within. I am invincible," Zarek gasped, his voice barely a whisper. Li Shan's eyes softened, but his voice remained steady. "No one is invincible. Not you. Not anyone." With that, Li Shan moved in for the final strike. The monk's staff flashed like a bolt of lightning, hitting Zarek's suit one last time. The energy core inside the armor detonated, sending the commander crashing to the ground with a violent thud. The arena fell silent as the commander's suit fizzled out, its systems completely fried. Li Shan stood over the fallen warrior, his chest rising and falling in slow, measured breaths. He didn't gloat. He didn't revel in the defeat. He simply looked down at Zarek, who was now unconscious, his once proud form sprawled out on the arena floor. The announcer's voice broke the stillness. "Li Shan of Earth, victorious in the final match." The crowd erupted in applause, though it was a muted, hesitant applause. No one was quite sure what to make of it. The galaxy had watched as Earth's representative had overcome impossible odds, twice. And now, the tournament was over. But the implications of Li Shan's victories were far from over. Li Shan took a step back, his face calm, his mind still. He had done more than just win. He had shown the galaxy something it had not seen before, a warrior who did not rely on technology, who did not depend on brute force, but who fought with honor, skill, and heart. As the cheers of the crowd began to swell, Li Shan looked up at the stands, meeting the gaze of Commander Zarek. The Varzanian general's eyes were full of anger, but also something else, respect. Perhaps, for the first time, he truly understood the strength of Earth. And the true power of the monk who had shown him that strength. But as the final echoes of the arena's cheers filled the air, Li Shan knew that this victory was just the beginning. The galaxy had seen Earth's martial arts. Now, it was time for Earth's true journey to begin.